You're listening to the Monday Night Community Show with Daniel on BRFM.
This is the Daniel Monday Night Community Show on demand through YouTube. Thank you very much for choosing to listen to us through this method. If you'd like to keep up to date with when I add new interviews, then subscribe to this channel. This is 95.6 BRFM, our very own community radio station right here on the Isle of Sheppey, all over Swale and beyond. And of course, love online for our website at brfm.net, on the Tuned In app and the Reach app as well. And now it's time here at the Monday Night Community Show to hear some of the interviews I did, following on from the interview I did the other week with Laurie. Of course, she's a local artist to us here on the island. She came in to talk all about how her work is at the Royal Engineers Museum as part of an exhibition called ARTEFACTS. I was able to go along to their official launch, and I caught up with two of the other artists who have got their work on show, and this is what they had to say when I spoke to them.
Yeah, my name's Victoria Heyman, and I basically help run or run CAN, Kent Artist Network. Basically it all started from a Facebook page by a lady called Jill Holder, who basically set up a Facebook page called Kent Artists, and her idea was to basically have a page where artists can upload their work and and talk together and network together, and hopefully something will come out of it. And when I joined, I saw the potential in this and thought, great, let's make something out of this. I'm a very proactive person, and when I see something or I've got an idea, I kind of run with it until it's finished. And so I said, right, let's put an exhibition on. And so with the help of Jill and a few other artists, we got together and we set up like a summer exhibition where we basically asked different artists if they want to, basically promote their work, and we put it up in Nucleus Arts in Chatham, and it was a great success. Everyone loved it. There was some fantastic work in it. And then it just basically rolled on from there. The next exhibition we did, it was in Dartford, because I'm trying to basically put different exhibitions together in different spaces in and around Kent, basically building bridges between Kentish artists. And the next one was in Dartford, and I give a theme or a subject idea and post it out there and said, look, who would be interested? I think we had like over 100 odd people submit for the Elements exhibition, which ended up being a fantastic exhibition itself. And then there was this one. I was helping Nucleus Arts with their Fun Palace project, and a lady here called Rebecca, who was working with them at the time, Royal Engineers, was at the meeting because they was doing a workshop at this Nucleus Arts Fun Palace project, and I was speaking about what CAN was. And so she emailed me and said, would you like to put an exhibition on in, the Royal Engineers Museum? I was like, yes, please. So so basically what I did is I then, decided out of all the artists that I had on my lists and all the artists that I've exhibited with before or submitted work before, I chose, knowing the space was a small space, I thought I chose a few artists that I know whose work kind of lends to kind of go well with each other but are so very different at the same time. And this is basically where we've come to now with this one, basically.
I was going to say, it's quite nice because often little groups start or networks start and they never get any further, but to actually have exhibitions where the artists can see their work and other artists can meet is really what makes something like this special.
Absolutely. I'm all about networking, into some. I know that, yes, I'm proactive. If I've got an idea, I will run with it and I will make sure it works. But the fact that you get people that have never seen this type of artwork, or you've got someone that wouldn't normally see this person, or this person wouldn't normally know that person, and it all just starts from a Facebook page, and it's lovely because every exhibition there's more and more people, and I'm seeing little things happening off this. I've seen a few other artists who've got an exhibition together, because they met at one of the CAN exhibitions. Another example of this, another artist called Duncan Grant, he lives in Gravesend. He's a nighttime road worker, and he came up with this idea, and he's like, Vicky, wouldn't it be great if we could design a pack of cards, but each card be designed by a different artist? That's a brilliant idea. He's put it on Facebook. Within 48 hours, we had 108 artists putting their hand up saying, yes, please, we'll get involved. And not just from Kent as well. We've got people from Australia, from Germany, from Ireland, submitting all these different cards. And once we had a list of 108 artists, he went and asked a random stranger to shuffle a pack, and then he dealt each one of these artists a card. And from a simple idea, we've now got a massive project which is now involving 3 different charities, 3 different exhibitions around Kent to raise money, for these 3 different charities. We're going to make actual pack of cards with these artist design cards, and we're going to sell them, and that all profits will go towards these charities. But all 3 of the charities are art-based charities. You've got Arts Inclusive, run by Nucleus Arts, who do all different projects for home-educated children, for elderly people, for disadvantaged children. You've got Art Track, who basically help people with autism, children with autism, using art as a type of therapy. And you've got Headway, which basically help people who've had head injuries or brain difficulties to use art as a type of therapy. So it's all like kind of lending on itself. You've got all these wonderful different sort of artistic talents coming together to produce something that's so positive and so rewarding in itself, helping the local community and their charities. So that's the next project I'm on, sort of thing, running alongside as well. So,
and if the listeners would like to find out more about that, or maybe they are a local artist, is it easy to get to the Facebook page?
The Facebook page for the Hand of Artist is literally search for Hand of Artist, and the picture will be loads of cards on a table, quite brightly coloured. There's a community page, and we keep posting up different cards that people have designed. There's also links there to the website, so they can donate money towards a charity. For example, if you donate £10, you get an artist pack of artist cards. If you donate £20, you get pack A and pack B. And there's loads of different incentives to help raise money for these different charities and that. Also there is a KAN website as well, and Kent Artist Facebook page as well. So I'll give you the links in that. So people can get involved, have a look, see if they want to do something the same. I've already had one person contact me, loving the Hand of Artist project, for example, and they want to do one of their own in their county, which is wonderful to hear. The fact it's inspired people to do the same sort of thing, it's brilliant. So I'm quite chuffed about that.
I was hoping you could next tell us a little bit about yourself as an artist.
Myself as an artist, yes, of course. Well, I never originally went out to be an artist, to be honest. I originally went to university as a single mum with 2 kids. One of them who's autistic, hence my heart kind of lends to one of those charities. I wanted to become a teacher. I thought I wanted to have a positive, be a positive role model to my children, and I wanted something that would work around childcare. So I thought, one of the things I enjoy doing is teaching. I've always been around children. My mum used to be a teacher, so I kind of, know the process. And I went to university, and I thought, what's the one thing I always enjoyed at school? Art. I always enjoyed art. And 3 years later, I walked away with the first honours degree in visual arts from Greenwich University, and my mind had changed. I wanted to do more than just be a teacher. I'm dyslexic. I find certain things, writing and stuff like that, very difficult. But expressing, teaching through art, I really, really enjoy. I did my degree, and then I set up my own studios in Canterbury called Sparrow Arts, where I thought I'd missed the interaction with other artists that you get when you're at university. I miss having someone there to talk to and bounce off, and the whole community, so to speak. And I couldn't find anything in Canterbury that I thought was affordable and that I would enjoy. So I set up Sparrow Arts, and for a few years that went really, really well. But with my son's diagnosis and my daughter is showing symptoms of being a little bit difficult, it was becoming a bit hard to travel from Maidstone to Canterbury to be in the studio, and a few other artists had moved, and it fizzled out in the end, which was a shame because it was a fantastic concept and it really worked for a while. And then randomly I walked into the Nucleus Arts Gallery in Maidstone, just having a look, thinking, what's going on in my town where I live, and I bumped into a lady called Claire, and she told me about Nucleus Arts, and there was a studio opening, so I went for it. And since then, I've literally been helping them curate some of their exhibitions, and this is where I've had the time and the energy to sort out the Kent artists, and basically run with it. So, personally, what's my practice? It's a difficult one.
Right.
If I said to you I'm an interactive installation artist, people wouldn't understand what I meant. I enjoy painting, I enjoy drawing, I enjoy sculpting and clay, but my passion lies in interactive spaces. I'm very passionate about people walking into a space and feeling something, whether it's sound, whether it's the light, whether it smells, I'm very much in people paying, taking part of, senses basically. That's where my heart lies, and that's another reason why I started throwing this, is because as an artist I felt I was missing the opportunity where I could go and do an installation or where I could exhibit my work, because I don't always do a painting or a sculpture. It's nothing that's easy to just put on the wall. I like to have something a bit more, and this is why I love this exhibition, because I've managed to weld. I had fun with the welder.
Well, could you tell our listeners a bit about your work in this exhibition?
Yes, of course. Well, basically what it is, when I first agreed to do the exhibition here, we decided as a collective to walk around the museum to basically see what this space is about. What is this museum? What do they have here? We wanted to respond to this place. And honestly, walking around, I was amazed. I had no idea the depths the Royal Engineers had involvement in the Army, in the world in general, in building, designing and architecture. It's amazing. And strangely, with all these wonderful artefacts around and all the history and all these fantastic things, there was one thing that stuck out to me, and it was this little golden copper box. And I looked at it and I thought, I recognise that box. Not as in, I think I've seen a picture of it somewhere else. As I feel like I've held that box. I couldn't, because it was in a case, but I thought, I really recognise that box. And so this was stuck in my head, and I've gone away and I thought, well, what I'm going to do? My grandfather was a engineer for the Royal Air Force, and I knew my great-grandfather was also in World War One. So I decided to ask the family and dig around about my own family history within the wars. And my auntie turned up with all the bits she had that belonged to my granddad, and there this golden box. That actually belonged to him, and I found it was basically given to the soldiers during World War One as a Christmas present from the Queen, and it had little treats of chocolates and all different things inside, and cigarettes and stuff. And I've opened up this box, and inside was my great-grandfather's medals. And again, I was in awe, thinking that my great-grandfather, he survived. He basically survived after the war and that. But to see all these medals was amazing, with his name on the outside. But the one that stuck out more than anything was the star medal. My previous work was always based on cosmology and the stars and planetary science. So to see this symbol, the star, as a medal for something fantastic he's done in the war, decided to research more into it. And I discovered that it was the 1914 Mons, or officially classified as the Mons Star, for soldiers that fought in the Mons War at the beginning. And again, amazed, so I decided to dig a little bit deeper and found out that he was a gunner, and he was basically one of the first brigades to be sent out there, and he basically survived the first Battle of Mons. So it was quite wow. And so again, researching about the war and what my great-grandfather would have gone through, and I kept reading all these stories about the soldiers and the trenches and how awful these trenches were. And I read a few poems, and there was a few things I read about soldiers literally looking to the sky and praying, and and I thought, going back to my love of cosmology and planetary sciences, I thought, I wonder if how different the sky might have been in Mons in 1914. I wonder if anything would be recognisable like you would if you looked in England, looked up at the sky. Yeah. So I had a special programme on my computer where you can reverse and fast forward time in the night sky. And so I reversed it all the way back to August in 1914 and set the coordinates for Mons in France. And the one constellation that stuck out in my head was the Hercules constellation, which I thought was quite recognisable, and it wasn't much different to what it would have been in England. And I researched a bit more into this constellation, and apparently the story behind this constellation of Hercules is he's about to face a battle with some giants, and literally the constellation is of him on his knees praying to his God for help for the battle he's about to face, which I just thought was apt, being that I would imagine the soldiers staring at these stars possibly doing exactly the same thing. So that's where the concept behind my work came from. So, and the practicality of it was I got to have fun with the welder.
Well, I'd like to thank you very much for telling us
thank you
all
for taking the
that.
time to listen. That's fantastic. Thank you.
We are continuing to talk to some of the artists here at the Royal Engineers Museum. I'm joined with another one of the artists who've got their work there. I was hoping first you could introduce yourself to our listeners.
Hi, I'm Marissa Marden.
What I'd hope you'd start off with is tell our listeners a little bit about yourself as an artist, perhaps what style you work in, what materials you work with.
Up until recently, I've been working mostly in oil paint, but I've currently started experimenting a bit more with my methods. So I've got a solo exhibition on at the moment at some pier, which is called Method, where I have been experimenting with the types of paint. So I've actually done a lot of acrylic paints and how I apply the paint and using a bit more colour. But I do love working in oil paint because it lends itself to being quite sort of photorealistic, which is what I love doing.
So oil paint is quite a sort of I always think of quite a thick paint. It's almost sculpture on paper, is it?
A lot of people have said that to me, that when they think of an oil painting, they think of it as something really thick where it's slapped on, and they don't really recognise that mine are oil paintings, because mine are very thinly, smoothly layered and blended. And that's part and parcel of the technique I use. So I kind of use a big brush and I blend them together, and it tends to look quite sort of photorealistic. And I have actually had discussions with people where they say, no, you haven't painted that. I said, I have painted it. They think it's been printed onto the canvas. And so that has actually affected my work in the last year or so, where I've thought, right, well, I'm going to show them that I've painted it. So instead of actually painting it from edge to edge, photorealistic, I've started leaving bits unfinished, having evidence of where it's been drawn, having bits of raw canvas. And you can see that in my painting here at the Royal Engineers Museum, where I have worked on a raw linen. And so instead of priming it white, a lot of paintings start off white, I prime it clear so you can see the colour of that brown linen. And then I have drawing on the back of it, and then I've painted into it with the oil paint. So the figures are painted with the oil paint, but it kind of fades out into pencil lines and watercolour pencil lines and oil washes. So I like to show the history of how the image has been created.
So it's quite a big image. Do you always work in a big size on canvas?
I like working large, but it's not always easy to, fit it into spaces. You've got more space to kind of work with the image on a large scale, but no, I do all different sizes. One of my previous exhibitions I had a couple of years ago was called Chatham Zoo, and I did very, very small 10-inch square paintings which were inspired by Polaroid photographs. So I kind of painted them to look like old black and white Polaroids. So I actually enjoy working on all scales, large to small. Yeah.
So could you tell us a bit more about this piece and what inspired that and how you come to get it as a final piece?
Yeah. When we were going around the exhibition, sometimes I find it hard to take, when you go around and you look, there's so many exhibits and cabinets, you you find it hard to take everything in. But I suppose a few things stuck out for me, when you go home and you think about what you'd seen. And I had noticed a map in one of the cabinets, so a very old map that was used by the engineers in some way. So that had stuck in my mind, and they had another section where some of the soldiers had actually painted paintings themselves, and that was in a whole section about camouflage, and it showed images of how they used camouflage to cover up their equipment or maybe where their position was. So my painting was inspired by working around how I could include camouflage in the image. So I had kind of like an idea in my head. I'd kind of like to superimpose different parts of it. And it's quite interesting because sometimes I'll have an idea in my head and I'll think, I'll do that. And then when I end up doing it, it doesn't work and I ended up doing something completely different. But my original idea I kind of stuck with in the end, and it became the painting that I ended up with. So I was inspired by drawing the map. I found a 1917 army barrage map, so it had the British front on it, and it was I think it was drawn for the people to know where they were going to drop their shells. So I used that as the basis, the background for the painting. with the linen showing through. And then I wanted to superimpose the images of the soldiers on top of that, and I found a great image of these guys in the field. One was on the phone, a field phone, or whatever it's called, and I'm not entirely sure what the other guy's doing. We don't know whether he's setting charges, he's got wires coming to him, there's barbed wire, there's mud, and there's a man just watching on, so I thought that was quite interesting to superimpose them onto the map, so they might be in the land that the map is showing. And then I also added in the camouflage aspect. So one of the soldiers is kind of almost disappearing into the map, and I used the lines from the map to act as the camouflage over the soldier. So I kind of played it by ear. I started the image with the map, started drawing the soldiers, and then I just saw which bits I wanted to bring out. So I painted a couple of the soldiers a bit more, and some of the other ones kind of fade off into the background a little bit and become more ghostly, and the other chap's a bit more sort of camouflage. So basically that was the inspiration for the piece.
So you've also got another exhibition on. I was hoping you could tell our listeners a bit more about that. It's my third solo show at Pier House, and it's on until the 29th of March. It's been open for a couple of weeks already. It's called Method, and it shows a collection of new paintings, as well as a retrospective of what I've been doing over the past 10 years since I graduated. So my earlier stuff are all oil paintings, but this new collection is acrylic paintings. This is the first time I've actually exhibited acrylic paintings. And originally I set myself the challenge of using colour, because generally I end up painting quite muted colours, so I thought, I'm going to use bright colours, and I wanted to play around with abstraction a bit more. So some of these new paintings were directly inspired from sketches through my studio window at some pier. Normally I work from photographs, so I was really wanting to kind of push the boundaries and find a new way of working. I've kind of played around with abstracting images of the pier or other figures. And so the show's on to the 29th, and on the 28th of March at 1:00, the day before it comes down, I'm taking part. I've got a walk and talk gallery tour where people can come and look at the exhibition with me there and ask me questions about my work, and I can give people a little bit of background of how I created the paintings, what they're about. So it's free for anyone to come along. So if you'd like to come and hear me talk about my work or ask me any questions about the paintings, do come and join me. Well, I'd like to thank you very much for telling us all about it.
Thank you.